Welcome back after a break. We still have interesting sessions for you ahead, and this part we are starting with OSINT. Hello, Mario.
Hi, Jacob.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well, doing well. How about you?
Perfect. So, the virtual stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Jacob. Right, good evening, everyone. It's a real honor to be here. Today, I really wanted to be there tomorrow. I was talking with Jacob before the presentation that I really wanted to go tomorrow to the presentation because it sounds that it's going to be so cool, but I'll settle for the online presentation. So the focal point for today for this presentation is going to be a domain in cybersecurity that, in my experience, is one of the most potent and yet understated realms in our field, if you can say, and that's open source intelligence, or OSINT. And more specifically, today we're going to talk about how adversaries are using OSINT and how we can protect ourselves, or what kind of things we can do to protect ourselves. So we have a lot to ground to cover today. We have really little time, so I'm just going to go briefly through my information. So my name is actually Mario Rojas. I'm from Costa Rica. I'm a senior security researcher with Oryx Labs. I've been in the cyber field for close to 14 years, give or take. I have covered a lot of different roles throughout my career, but some of the most interesting ones have been where I had to do investigations into the deep and dark web to hunt for cyber criminal groups. One thing that I really like to do in my spare time is just writing and developing small scripts and so on. And here are my social media. So let's just dive in right away. What is OSINT? I'm not going to actually recite what Wikipedia defines as OSINT. I'm just going to tell you that it's actually about collecting, evaluating, analyzing information from public sources. And there are a couple of terms that I would like to highlight here. It's analyzing and public sources. Analysis is very important when you're talking about OSINT because without analysis, the information is just information. It doesn't provide any additional insights. It doesn't provide any intelligence. It doesn't answer any questions to what you are looking for. And public sources are important because that's what OSINT is about it. It's about open sources, open places, open things, open information. So it has to be about things that anyone can get, information that anyone can get. And there are many different public sources. I'm not going to recite all of this for you. What I wanted to talk about is that there is a little bit of debate in the community about what counts as a public source. Some people would say that a public source, it's only things that are free and open. And some other intelligence analysts will say that it's anything that the public can have access to, even if they have to pay a little bit of extra money. Me, in my opinion, I'm actually on the second way of thinking. If you can pay for it, like for example, for threat feeds, for data miners, for business intelligence, things like Shodan, Sensis, any kind of tool that is not crazy expensive, that you can pay for and that you can grab the information to in order to help you do it throughout your day. I consider that as part of the public sources. So let's dive in right away into the adversarial use of OSINT. Adversaries actually use OSINT for many different things. It's mostly associated with recon or reconnaissance. That's actually a big part of what they do with it, but it's not all of it. They actually use OSINT before, during, and after their attacks. You will see that in just a minute. We're going to actually cover a couple of real-world use cases or case studies, when OSINT had been used by these adversaries, threat groups, and so on, and how they used it. They use it for from social engineering to phishing, to creating even intelligence reports into their victims, or those who are going to be their victims. In the next few slides, as I mentioned, we're going to cover a couple of case studies. Something that I will do is actually I'm going to take you through the case study, and I'm not going to mention right away who the threat actor or the adversary is. Let's see if you can figure out yourself who this particular group could be or person. So case study number one starts with this threat actor or this group actually identifying their targets. And you see here that I actually added a small image of Crunchbase. Crunchbase is a business-to-business platform that they offer, or they market mainly to marketing teams, people that are going to looking for information on specific companies that they may want to do business with, or they may want to sell products to. But this is one of the things that actually adversaries use to their advantage, or this particular adversary does. They start by identifying their targets by looking at companies in Crunchbase. They look for the size of the company or the number of employees that the company has. They look for the funding the company has. They look for the earnings in the last year. They check information about who are their C-levels or the higher ups. And this particular group, they had a threshold, for example. They would say that if this company, in order to be valuable for them, it had to earn, I think, I don't know, over $10 million per year. That's just an example. Once they identified their targets, they had one of three ways in which they could move on to the next stage. They could start by gathering information about their victims. You see here that I'm actually listing a few different sources. They have ZoomInfo, Signal Hire, which are kind of similar to Crunchbase. They just gather information about people per se. These are search engines for people. And maybe also see LinkedIn. Obviously, we all know what LinkedIn is. It's just a social media platform for the professionals. The second way that they could go about is finding valid accounts. For this, they would use different things. They would use something they call initial access brokers. These are particular adversaries or criminals that they focus on gaining access to companies and then just selling the access to someone else, in this case, a different threat actor group. And they will also look into breaches for information. We know that there are a lot of breaches happening every other day. And the number of people reusing passwords is crazy high. So this is one of the ways that they would go about it. The other thing that they would do is gather network information as well. So they would mostly start, I guess, with passive things or passive ways to go about getting that data. They would use things that we all know, like Shodan, Census, Sumai, FOFA, and so on. They would also do active scans, but obviously this is something that may raise an alert. So as usual, they would prefer to go with the most passive way first, if they can. From gathering the victim information, they would move on to phishing and social engineering. So they would create fake social media profiles to start talking with the people. They would create spoof domains, sorry. They would spoof domains and they would create typo-squatted domains. That's what I wanted to say. They would create typo-squatted domains that would look pretty similar to that of the organization in order for them to send emails, to start the phishing, and so on. And for the after getting the network information, they would actually start looking at, for example, deprecated technology versions. They would look for particular technologies that they know that companies use, like in this case, if they were looking for Exchange, Fortinet, VMware, and so on. And they were actually looking also for specific things like RDP ports, SSH ports, FTP ports, things like that. Things like they find juicy, if you may say. Once they had that information, then they can move on to the next stage. And here I'm sorry, here I'm oversimplifying it, because after this stage, there would be a lot of things here, like they will even the payloads, exploitation, getting access, 11 privilege, and so on. But that's not the point of the presentation. So I'm just going to resume this as the ransomware part. So they would deliver the ransomware, they would exploit the data. But here is not actually where the use of OSINT would stop. After this, they will actually start using the information that they gathered at the very beginning to in the identify targets and gathering information phase. So they would start extorting the VIPs of the company that they targeted. They would tag them on social media saying that, hey, we breached this company. We have all the data from the company. They have this many hours, this many days in order to pay before we release the data and so on. So even after they have breached the company, they're still using OSINT for that. And if you haven't guessed yet who the threat actor is, in this case, it was a threat actor known as, or a threat group known as Conti, and this was a Russian group. They had many different names like Trickbot, Wizard Spider, and so on. This little image here was created by AI after I asked to show me how Wizard Spider looked like, and that's why it looks like this. As you can see, they have a motivation of financial gain, and they would target anyone besides Russia. Some of the most prolific hacks from this group was they targeted actually my country or my government, and even actually caused the government to call national emergency due to all the different services that were lost due to this ransomware. They have a couple of other ones in the last couple of years. Something interesting about Conti is that Conti actually gave us a quick view or an actual real open view into how threat groups really leverage OSINT. They suffer a leak, as you can imagine. They suffer a leak, and a lot of their chats were actually leaked into the public. This is in Russian. I don't speak Russian, but I translated information for us. Here, what they were talking about is salaries. For me, the most interesting part is actually that they had an OSINT department. So they took OSINT seriously. And this is just to show you that these kind of groups, they actually take OSINT seriously because it's a really, really important tool for them or resource for them. I'll move on to the next case study. I will do the same. I'll just tell you take you through the case study, and then we'll see who the actor behind is. So this particular actor, they started by establishing accounts in social media. They focus a lot on LinkedIn, Twitter, but they also covered, Telegram, Discord. They also acquired infrastructure. By this, meaning they bought domains, they created blogs. You will see in this one is quite an interesting one. They created blogs that, in order to trick people into believing that these were legitimate places, in order also to deliver the malware that they would use to infect their victims. So once they established the accounts, they started identifying their targets. They were actually using a lot of OSINT for this. So they were using LinkedIn's search capabilities to search for developers in specific companies. They would not target everyone. They actually were pretty picky about who they were targeting. They wanted people that they would know, they would have the right access for them. They wanted to target people that they would think would fall for the phishing or for the scam that they were working on. Once they had established trust, or they had established credibility with in this case, the developers, they would ask the developers either to complete this one is one of those coding challenges that you would get if you're applying for a job somewhere, or they would ask them they will send them a document saying, okay, this is the information about the job that we are offering, for example, and this is the kind of pay that you would get. So they will get sent an email with malware in it. Once they executed once they open the email, once they open the document in their computers, it will actually just be a decoy document, and they will actually install malware on the computer, and you will start just the command and control phase, just communicating with their C2 servers. Something interesting about this one is that they actually also, even though they were targeting specific people, they also were opportunistic in their ways, because they left the blog open. So the specific people would come into the blog and they will actually get also infected as well. After that, I think in this case, it's just me guessing, but I would say that they would take whoever was getting into the blog and just looking at them afterwards, looking at them in social media, checking if it was interesting or not for them, and then just moving on. Here you can see some examples of the social media where they will just connect with the people and just start talking to them. And the LinkedIn one is the one that were they offering a job. The one on the right hand side is another recruiter, as you can see here. The particular case, as I mentioned, they were actually targeting developers and offering them job positions. It's just one of the email addresses that one of them got, and you can see that they were using OneDrive, and they were zipping the files actually, and that just with the idea of antivirus not being able to detect it and so on. And then you would see people talking to them about the files that they wouldn't be able to open the file, and they will just share the passwords somewhere else. Yeah, this one for some reason it's missing the next slide. So in this case, the threat actor behind this one is known as Lazarus. It's I think everyone knows in our field who Lazarus is. It's just a North Korean threat actor. They're very prolific about what they do. There is a lot of evidence that they leverage OSINT for highly targeting their victims. They have been very focused in the last few years on getting or attacking crypto-related companies. I think I read somewhere that since they started in 2007, they have stolen a little bit over $3 billion. Can you imagine that $3 billion? There was just even one company, I think one of the case scenarios, I think the one for the fake job, where they lost 620 million just off of this little scheme. Right, I'll move to the defensive part of it. So let's just talk about how we could defend ourselves. And in my opinion, the best defense for something like this is actually to look ourselves through the same lens that the adversaries use. So this would mean that we should look at organizations using the same techniques, the same resources, the same information, and possibly the same tools that the adversaries use. There is a lot of misconception out there that these adversaries that are very sophisticated, they may use tools that are super sophisticated tools for their attacks. That's the case most of the time, but they also use information that is available for anyone. They use sources like I mentioned before. They use Shodan, they use Census, they use Crunchbase, they use LinkedIn. They use a lot of things that are out there for anyone to look at. And we may think that it might not be really relevant, but they are doing it, and they are actually pretty good at what they do, unfortunately for us, most of the time. So what we should do is actually, we should, as I mentioned, look at ourselves through the same lens. So I'm not going to, just in case I'm not going to cover in the presentation, Google dorking. This is something that is quite known, is widely talked about everywhere. So I just don't want to repeat the same form for you. I'm just going to cover some different tools and some different resources that we can use. So OSINT allows you to get a pretty comprehensive view of our infrastructure nowadays without even touching the infrastructure. It used to be before that you had to actually scan the companies. You had to go and check each and every port to see if the ports were open and so on. And this is still done today, but today we have more resources. Today we can use tools like Shodan, for example, and Census that could give us a pretty good overview without us needing to actually touch the company or them needing to touch the company. In these examples that you can see here in Shodan, you should start looking, for example, you can use the filters that they have for the network. If you know your network range, you can use you can see the filter at the bottom. You can pass the whole range into Shodan and just ask the tool to show you all the information that they know about hosts in this particular range. You can ask for specific countries. You can ask for specific organizations. You can even specify if you want the organization, the specific tools. We know that recently there is still a vulnerability with Cisco XE. So you can actually use Shodan to search for specific vulnerable instances in the wild. You could use Shodan to search instances in your own organization, in your own network. And on the Sensi side, usually it's very similar to Shodan. They use different filters. The pattern is a little bit different, but still gives you kind of the same information. One thing that is very important in OSINT or in intelligence overall is confirming the information that you get. So checking two different sources like Shodan, Sensis, SumInfo, FOFO, and so on, as I mentioned, will only give you confirmation that what you're seeing is actually correct, that the information that you're actually seeing, the exposed assets, for example, are actually there. One thing that some people will say, for example, is that Shodan, if you want to use these specific filters, you have to pay for it. That's what I was mentioning a few slides ago, that even if it's paid, it's considered OSINT, in my honest opinion. Even Shodan, they go on sale every other month, I think, or every year at least. They go on sale for $5 for a lifetime subscription, so it's not something that you cannot access. And with things with like Sensis, for example, it might be a little bit difficult, more difficult to learn the filters and so on. But did you know that there is something that it's called Sensis GPT now? So if you don't know which filters you can use, if you don't know what to look for example, you can actually use Sensis GPT and just ask for things like you will see in here. I just asked for, just give me all the RDP ports in Costa Rica. So I'm just picking up my country. Once I click on generate query, it will just spit out some query that I can use, that I can try. And this is a very simplified one, but you can ask for additional things. You can like ask for, give me only vulnerable devices in this specific range of IPs, or give me all the, as I mentioned, the Cisco devices in this specific region or in this specific company even, and so on. And just to be sure, I ran the query just to test if it worked. You can see that it actually spit out the results. I just obscure some data here so to not dox anyone without looking for it. And these ones, I talk mostly about the infrastructure, just getting data from mapping your assets and so on. But as I mentioned, I think before, you can look for deprecated and vulnerable technologies. You can look for specific open ports. You can look for test instances, VPN instances, development instances, things that shouldn't be exposed to the internet. You can even ask for specific CVEs if you want. And this is something that you should do, actually, because this is what the bad guys are doing. So it's not so difficult. It's not so too hard in going to do something like this. In the case studies, you saw that they focused a lot on social media. They used a lot of, they actually, something they do a lot is actually getting email addresses, grabbing email addresses. And I mentioned they use things like Crunchbase, SumInfo, SignalHire, and so on. But one that I find really useful is actually Hunter.io. Why I find it useful is because it actually provides a lot of information and you don't even have to sign up for it most of the time. And if you sign up for it, you get the free version, which is still limited, but it gives you quite enough data. And trust me, this is something that the adversaries are doing, so why not do it ourselves? And as you will see here on the screen, it doesn't give you the full information. As I mentioned, it's limited. It doesn't show the full email addresses, but it actually gives you something that is interesting or important here. It gives you the pattern of the email. So it's not very difficult for you to guess the missing part or the missing portion. And it's not difficult for the adversaries to do it. Something that I like for us, for the defense side of things, is that they also give you the sources of the data. So you can go and check if this, why is the email address present in these particular pages. You see that they mark when it has been removed. Why is the email address there? Maybe it is not supposed to be there at all. Maybe you can talk to the employees, you can talk to whoever the email address is there and just see why it's being exposed there. It might be for a good reason, but you never know. Then also you should look at breaches based. I talked about the breaches before. This is one that we all know is have I been bound. This you can check email address and so on, but you can also search for specific domains for the whole domain. So if you want to know about when there are new exposures or where the new leaks for your company's domain, that you can sign up for this and it will notify you. You have to follow some steps to confirm that you are not one of the bad guys that is trying to take advantage of it, but it's super simple. So let's do it. And something that we're seeing more and more nowadays is that there are a lot of developers leaving secrets like the API keys, like actual credentials in the code that they're preparing. And trust me that the adversary is also noticing this too. You can use things like tools like Forager. This one is called Forager to search for specific emails. Here you can see that I also picked on my own country once again. So I was searching for the university that I studied on, and I actually found some leaked credentials there, some specific Google keys. And something here to highlight is that I can see different, this is called the location, I can see some different sizes. So it means that it's probably either different people that are causing this leak or is different credentials, which is even worse. Something else that actually we see a lot nowadays is with the companies moving on into the cloud, is that we are learning how to jump into the cloud. We are learning how to create new infrastructure. We are learning how to use it for our web applications, but unfortunately, it looks like we are not learning how to protect ourselves or how to protect them from leaking information. One source that I really like a lot for this is called a Grey Hat Warfare. This one allows you to search for bucket names. This one allows you to search for file names as well. And it even allows you to search for or use regexes for your search. So this one is pretty cool. It's very open. It obviously, as most of the tools, it will limit the number of results that you get. But the number of results that you get is quite a good number, if I could say. So I just, for testing for purposes, I searched for payroll 2023. I assume that no private company would like to see their payroll information exposed to the internet. When you do the search and you see these specific links for the files, this is open. This information is open. Oh, sorry, these buckets are open. So if you click on the file, it will open up for you, or it will download it for you. So you have to be very careful when you're looking into a source like this one. But it's worth going and checking. You can search for your domain. You can search for mentions, for example, of specific products that your company use or specific projects your company is working on that shouldn't be out in the public. And this one is also free, so you can register and just get as much information as you want. So something that is very, very important here is once we find the information, once we learn about sources like the ones we just discussed, once we find information that we want to look at, is we have to translate that information into something that is actionable. We have to create something that works pretty much like a framework, as I said on this slide. And building a framework is not about sporadically just running the tools or getting data from these different sources that I mentioned. It's about actually getting them into our own infrastructure, ingesting the information, integrating, for example, into our CM or into our SOAR to kind of automate or go one step beyond that, just getting the data. But when I talk about this, a lot of times organizations, they don't even know where to start, what tools to use, what sources are available for the specific things. And this is where something like the OSINT framework comes handy. The OSINT framework, it's just a collection of tools and techniques and sources that people can use. It's just a curated group of information or set of information, sorry. You can see that it has a lot of different categories like usernames, email address, domain names, IP addresses, and so on. We can look, for example, at the ones that we were looking for, like email addresses. You can just have to click on it when you're trying the tool. You will have additional things that you can look at, but you will see that they also list the same ones that I just mentioned before. For example, this is very, very comprehensive. not only contains sources, but it contains tools as well. It contains links to websites where they will have guides on how to use the different tools, for example. And this is just another example here. I just moved to what is this one, business records. And you will see that, for example, Crunchbase are in some information there, but so are a lot more of these ones. Something that I like to highlight here is that choosing the right tools is also fundamental for you. So just as important as the quality of the data is the tools that you are going to use for the collection of information. There are tons of tools out there. There is tons of things that you can use, but you have to know which, or you have to define the ones that work the best for you, for the organization, and so on. So you can use the OSINT framework to start testing the different tools, and then you can decide which ones you like the most. But I can share with you some of the ones that I really like. For example, I really like the Harvester. Why I like the Harvester? Because this one not only collects information on, for example, domains, IP addresses, and so on, but it also collects information on email addresses, on leaked information, and it uses, I think, Bing and Google for searches and so on, used to expand the amount of information that you get and the quality of the information that you get. You will see that mentioned in these are the modules where you can add your API key just to improve the results that you get. Here are some of the different sources that I mentioned before. It's covered by the same tool. So what it does is that it makes it easier for you. You don't have to go to each specific tool and look for information. You can simply grab your API keys, upload it into here, and just get all the information into a single place. The second tool that I like, sorry, I forgot something. The second tool that I was going to mention that I really like is called Karma. This one is quite nice. This one, why I like it is it also collects information on your assets like domains, IP addresses, open ports, and so on. But it also does something similar to Dorking, but with Shodan. So it has predefined a lot of different filters that are going to give you interesting information. For example, it will fingerprint SSL certificates. It will give you information on exposed Kubernetes, for example, exposed Docker instances. It will give you information on exposed admin panels that shouldn't be exposed. So it's just grabs a lot of information. It grabs all the information for you, creates a little nice report, and then just finds those interesting bits of information that you may not know to look for example. And before we go, just the last one. This one is one of my all-time favorites. It's Maltigo. Maltigo, it's not free per se. They have a community version that is limited in the amount of results that they can give you, but it's very, very good because not only it connects all the information from, I think they have like 100 different sources now. It deduplicates the data for you. It cleans the data for you. It allows you to run something they call transforms, which is specific. These are like little scripts that you can use to enrich the information that you already have. And at the end, it can create reports for you, which you can use for to provide to your peers, to higher management, and so on. Here is just an example of how a network for fingerprint will look like with Maltigo. You see that it's actually quite clean, and it allows you to be sure you understand what the information that you have is. And that's it for today. I just wanted to leave some time at the end if we can for any questions that may arise.
Yes, indeed, we have one question. What do you think are the best books on threat hunting and incident response?
Ooh, there are quite a bit. There is one very interesting that is called Hunting Cyber Criminals. I don't remember the name of the author, but it's very, very good. It focuses a lot on OSINT and using tools and creating tools, and it's very nice. It's very comprehensive.
Okay, we have no other questions as I see. Oh yes, we have another one. Do people leave malicious files publicly available to hack OSINT researchers?
Yes, actually the threat actors are known for adding not only malicious files, but also adding misinformation. So they create websites that will have incorrect information, and they will allow Google, Bing, Yandex, whatever, to index the data. And then when you're searching for information, you may get the wrong information. That is why it's important to get information from as different places as possible, because it will confirm your findings. You shouldn't trust one single source, and you should be really careful when you're doing this.
As always in cybersecurity.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you and take care. See ya.
Thank you so much. Bye.